Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your hosts, TV, aka TV on Basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
Hey man, NBA offseason might be slowing down, bro, but the big names are still flying around on the free agency market. TV. The NBA landscape is in an interesting place right now, dog. So we got a lot to talk about today.
Man, you're telling me, bro. There's been reunions, there's been betrayals happening this offseason, just this past week in general. And Jay, this was not planned at all, but we have turned this into the freaking point guard themed episode with the amount
Yes,
of moves
sir.
that I've made, and we are finally starting, like we teased last week in the last couple episodes. The top 10 lists are back, and today we're running the top 10 point guards. And it was only right with the amount of point guard moves that has happened this offseason, just throughout this week in general. So it's going to be a great episode. We're going to be ending off the episode with the top 10 point guards. We're going to go through that. Should be a good one, man. Again, point guard theme in general, because, man, this offseason, especially this week, heavy point guard theme. So we're going to definitely get into that pretty soon. It's going to be a good episode, so you do not want to miss out on this. But first, Jay, before we get into our list, before we get into the point guard free agency talk, we do have to plug our socials. Make sure you follow our individual socials at TV on Basketball, at the Knockdown J. Those links can be found in the description down below. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content, where you got the news stories, you got the series, you got the clips, all that stuff can be found in our TikTok and Instagram. And also check out our YouTube shorts. Speaking of YouTube, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. You can find all our video formats over there. And in terms of the podcast network, Spotify, Apple, remember to subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff. We appreciate all of you guys' support. Jay, are you ready to get into this?
Yeah, bro. Like you said, the point guard theme. I'm gonna let you go ahead and direct us through this path, my boy.
Yeah, we're gonna start with some point guard moves, and we're gonna start with the nice, happy and that tingling feeling in your heart sort of moves that happened. We had two of them this week, Jay. We're gonna start off with the big one though. Damian Lillard, after spending the last two seasons as a Milwaukee Buck, has returned to Rip City, returned to the Portland Trail Blazers on a 3-year, $42 million deal. Obviously, he's not going to play the next season because of an Achilles injury, but he gets to go back to Portland, rehab with his family, rehab back at his home. And by 2026, 2027, Jay, we're going to see him back in the Blazers uniform, and it's going to look absolutely beautiful. This time with a completely different team, with a completely different direction. I'm going to throw it over to you, Jay. What are your thoughts on this? Honestly, as a fan of basketball, I was super happy to see this.
Yeah, I mean, I saw your video and I thought it was really interesting because you definitely took the high road. A lot of people would have looked at the Damian Lillard signing and been like, yo, bro, so did Buddy just give up on wanting to win a championship, right? Because you have to think about the teams that were named off as potential destinations for him, right? Going to the Boston Celtics, where they said Jason Tatum was heavily recruiting him. Obviously, the Miami Heat were a team that were brought up in passing. The LA Clippers, the Los Angeles Lakers were all teams that at least had a chance to get Damian Lillard, and instead he goes back to Rip City, like you said. And I think, like you said, the basketball fan in you just kind of has a warm heart because you look at this guy and say, honestly, you never thought you'd see him in a different jersey that wasn't black and red, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you also look at it and say, dang, are we going to see Damian Lillard in postseason basketball ever again, like with the rate that he's headed to? I mean, he's coming off of one of the most prolific injuries, not only of his career, but across the NBA. This is the one that usually ends up derailing a lot of
Especially as a
NBA careers,
35-year-old.
especially as a 35-year-old, and especially as a point guard that relies on lifts so much because he's a distant shooter. It's kind of, his thing to be a knockdown shooter from 35 plus feet from beyond the arc. And now you're talking about taking out the one thing that makes him so dangerous in terms of him being able to get so much lift to get those long distance shots off. So you wonder to yourself just how effective of a player Damian Lillard is going to be moving forward. But at least for the upcoming season, more than anything, seeing him on tour with the Portland Trail Blazers, being one of those guys that could act as like a mentor figure in the locker room for what is a very talented young squad, by the way.
Underrated squad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This Portland Trailblazers team is a team that a lot of people were are quietly coming into the offseason saying like, yo, they could potentially be like a cool play-in team with Drew Holiday, Jeremy Grant. You still have, Tamani Kamara. You have a handful of different guys that can bring a lot to the table and showed off a lot of different things last season. And now you have Damian Lillard, who, although won't be playing next year, is a guy that now you could add to this team a season after, hey, Drew Holiday will still be on the team, got a defensive wing guard next to him, another guy who has defensive upside and ball handling ability next to him, and Jeremy Grant. You still have Denny Avdija. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah.
Shaden Sharp, Scoot Henderson. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, go down the list. You still have a really good center core with what they've been able to do over the last 2 seasons, even with letting DeAndre Ayton go. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, do I think this is gonna be a team that can be insanely like effective in the postseason, even when they add Damian Lillard back? Maybe not. But is this kind of the way you would like to see Damian Lillard go out? Actually, yeah. Like seeing Dame back in Rip City with a chance to maybe still be on a scrappy Western Conference team, even if he never plays another postseason game again after this year. Personally, bro, I just think this is the way the story was supposed to be written. My boy left. They say the grass is not always greener on the other side. He went to a green team and it was not as green as he would have hoped. So he's going back black and red, man. And it just feels like, you know, the basketball gods have reset the universe and put things back the way they were supposed to be, man.
Yeah, 100%, man. I was super happy to see the news. I feel happy, like, for Blazers fans in general, because as a Raptors fan, and we see this now with the LA Clippers too, you always want to see your franchise legends, Damian Lillard on the Blazers, Chris Paul on the Clippers. At some point, DeMar DeRozan with the Toronto Raptors. I want to see that happen at some point. Him or Kyle Lowry. I'm okay with either. But
Yeah.
seeing these guys have their swan song, having their careers end where it started or where it happened best, it's always you want to see. You want to see your fan favorites come back, and for the Blazers, they're able to do that. And like you mentioned, Jay, this is not like this. This is not the same Blazers team that Damian Lillard had back in the day, but it feels like more of a complete team, more of a defensive oriented team, which we've been praying for the Blazers to have even during the Damian Lillard days.
Yeah.
And it feels that this Blazer team, we've seen this with the Pistons in the past. We've seen this when it comes to other teams who have a bunch of young talent, but need to have the Jay. What's our favorite word on this show? Competency.
Hey man, I was thinking about it too, man. It's one of those things where you add a competent, you know, not just veteran presence, but like this is the guy when it comes to Portland, right?
Yes.
This is the dude. Like I think you said it in your TikTok. I think the argument can be clearly made at this point, like that this is the best guy in their franchise history.
Yes. 100%.
Like that feels very easy to say, or at least it's a lot better of a conversation to have now as opposed to maybe even a few seasons ago, right? That
Yes.
now this guy has solidified himself as like the icon of their franchise, right? So you're talking about bringing him back into the fray of a team that has built a real identity around defense, right? And now the only real question mark, in my personal opinion, because you got to think financially, they're pretty much locked in. I mean, let's be honest. The Drew Holiday plus Jeremy Grant thing alone is taking up a lot of their cap for 2 older players, but that's part of what comes with the deal of them also having a really young team full of very small contracts, right?
Yeah.
But you look at it, Drew Holiday, veteran mentality. Jeremy Grant, veteran mentality. You have a defensive infrastructure with some of the young guys that you have with Donovan Kling and Tumani Kamara, right? The biggest question they really have is, can we unlock what we thought was an all-star caliber point guard in Scoot Henderson? That's their
Jay,
biggest hole.
If he doesn't succeed now, he has one of the best defensive point guards in modern era. He has one of the best offensive point guards of the modern era. He has a Hall of Fame point guard coach.
There you go. I was just about to say, let's not forget that the coach is also a part of this developmental path as well, not just in terms of the fact that he is, you know, obviously the guy that's supposed to lead him forward, but let's remember the particular position Chauncey Billups is coming from, right? So when you look at that, right, you look at those names, Chauncey Billups, Drew Holiday, Damian Lillard, that's not your point guard room, but it's your point guard room. You know what I mean, right?
It is.
Right?
Yes.
And so you think about that and you say, man, I'm not going to lie. The next 2 to 3 years, especially because you have to look at Drew Holiday's contract. I believe he's signed for the next 2 to 3 seasons, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You have to think for the next 2 to 3 years, at bare minimum, the next season to season and a half, you have one of the best mentorship groups, being Scoot Henderson, that any point guard could ask for. I'm not going to say it's make or break, but if there was any chance that you have to unlock Scoot Henderson, particularly in terms of finding out who he really is as an all-star caliber player, or at least a high-level point guard, prior to having to pay him. Because you got to think, you only got one more season before you have to really consider an extension for Scoot Henderson as
Yes.
well. This is one of the most important years of his developmental pathway. This year and next season are two of the most important years in Scoot Henderson's developmental pathway in terms of unlocking who he could be for this Rip City team moving forward. So, I mean, hey, this is how you get it done, bro. This is how you get it done. It's
This
a
is
win-win for both the Portland Trailblazers and Damian Lillard, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and the thing is here is with Damian Lillard, yes, it's a 3-year deal, but does that mean he can't go back to a contender? It's a 2-year deal,
Right.
player option, no trade clause. Dame has all the ball is in his court.
Yeah.
Ball is in his
No
court. This
trade
is the
clause,
most
boy.
ideal scenario, the ideal partnership for Damian Lillard at this time. He can go home, he can rehab, he could be the mentor to the young guys. And
Yeah.
you know what? If he still's got it at age 37, 38 years old, 1-year chance, 2-year
Yo.
chance at another situation,
Yeah.
like it's a good win-win situation for everyone.
Yeah.
And plus, it's a cheap deal. 3 years, $42 million, $14 million a year. Yes, it's their entire mid-level exception. Well, it's a pretty damn good player for someone who would be a top 10 point guard in the league. We'll talk about that later. If he wasn't injured, if he wasn't an injured player,
True.
so
Yeah.
it leaves a lot of doors open. And I'm just super excited to see what this Trailblazer team is. You say that they might not make the playoffs, Jay. I think that this could be one of the stories where a team finally gets some, more, competency, has more of a clear direction. They're going to be playing hard on the defensive end. Does it sound familiar, Jay? Does it sound familiar to the freaking Houston Rockets?
Yes, it does, sir.
It sounds.
Yes, it does.
I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be a 1-for-1, but you have people like Denny Avdia continue to grow. Obviously, a lot of young talent over there. You got some good veterans in Jeremy Grant and Drew Holiday. You know what? It's a little bit of a similar process. Former player coach Ime Udoka, Chauncey Phillips. I know, I'm just going to keep making these comparisons.
It's coming together. Hey, man, whether it's a reach or what, it's still it's still a good way to build your team, and it's a good outlook for what positivity could come from an upcoming season where now the Trailblazers have a lot more to anticipate. I think if anything, right, and this is not a 1-for-1 comparison, but I think another interesting thing that you could assimilate with this young Portland Trailblazers team is if you look back at that Phoenix Suns squad from the bubble, right? And you look at that momentum that they were able to build in those 7 games and just come out of it coming off of that season with Monty Williams and saying like, yo, you know what, yo? We could really be one of them teams. We starting to slowly but surely make sense. And now we have a handful of games that we can use as a sample size and say like, yo, when we play our best, like we really are one of them teams that needs to be like discussed in the Western Conference as one of the up and coming rising squads. And even if they don't achieve, of course, anything close to what the Phoenix Suns did that season after, or the season or two afterwards, this is still a team that I think has the ability to punch way higher above their weight. Given the fact that they play hard. Yeah, just given the fact that they play hard, they've got veteran leadership, and again, man, they're just built on really good infrastructure of the fact that their defense was so good last year, especially on the second half of the season after the All-Star break. That's really good infrastructure to build off. And when you got guys like Denny Avdia and Tumani Kamara as your wings, and you still got Jeremy Grant and Drew Holiday, oh, man, good luck on the 94 feet, buddy. Because if they decide to full court press, it's going to look like OG Syracuse pressing dudes. You can't even get it over half court. It's going to be tough.
Bro, there could be lineups with even Matisse Thybulle in there, bro. They still have Matisse Thybulle on that team. And they got rid of the whole DeAndre Ayton situation, which they've been trying to, kind of move past that over the past, year or so.
Right.
It's a good direction. Young Henson, and if you're a fan of Young Henson, bro, Young Henson's looking like that guy. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of him as well. So I like the outlook of this team. I really like the outlook of this team. It's kind of feeling like a few years ago Houston Rockets, where you could kind of see the things kind of putting together. So super excited for them. Excited for Dame to come back. It's going to be awesome when he can finally get back on the court and be the point guard of his team. Whether he's coming up the bench, maybe Scoot Henderson takes that leap where it becomes undeniable. He becomes the starting point guard, but he's still going to be on the court. I'm excited to see Damian Lillard back in a Blazers jersey.
Definitely,
Jay. But this wasn't the only reunion that happened this week, Jay. Chris Paul is deciding to use his final year in the NBA. I mean, he's been saying this for a while now that if he's going to play, it's going to be for one more year. But he's reuniting with the Los Angeles Clippers. Yes, the frontman, the floor general of the Lob City Clippers is back in the unction, Jay. Jay, this whole LA Clippers team has become the uncle function. We're calling it the unction now because they just have a bunch of these really, savvy, older players who honestly coming together put together a really good team over here. I still think
Yeah.
there's obviously a lot of questions about health going forward, especially with the way things ended last year. How good is a Kawhi Leonard, James Harden duo? But I think Chris Paul fits right in. They have another year for the Clippers where they have like a solid 9-10 man rotation. Jay, your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on this signing? I think it's exactly what the Clippers needed.
The first thing I thought, which was hilarious to me, was like, yo, in 2017, we would have called this like entire depth chart cracked as hell, bro.
Bro, yeah. Friggin' imagine 2017. You have like a young, promising Chris Dunn. You have prime Harden, prime CP3, prime Kawhi. Like, yo, this team would have been nuts in 2017. But sadly, we
Yeah,
are in
bro.
2025.
Yeah, man, that's the first thing I thought was just so funny. I'm thinking James Harden 2017, Bradley Beal averaging damn near 30 points
Yeah,
2017,
Brooke
Kawhi Leonard,
Lopez.
Brooke
No.
Lopez 2017,
Yeah,
the original Splash Mountain move set. Oh my gosh. You still got Ivica Zubac on his team, John Collins is on his squad, Derrick Jones Jr., I mean, would have been at the peak of his athleticism around that
yeah.
time, Chris
But
Dunn,
it's a good
you
team.
know.
But even still, this is a good team, bro. This is
But
still a
no,
good team.
but yeah, all jokes aside, right, about the whole 2017 thing though, look at the squad for what it is, bro. Look at what the squad has, bro. You have elite level scoring, James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard. You have the big man depth they desperately needed. TV, we brought this up during the postseason. If they had any, and we said this about the Nuggets as well, so this is funny
Yeah.
how this applies, but if this Clippers team had any competent center play behind Ivica Zubac last year, I think that they look. It might be controversial because we have to remember who won the championship. But what I'm saying is, if they had a competent backup center behind Ivica Zubac,
Basically, not Drew Eubanks. Yeah,
all I'm saying is that maybe things go a little differently. That's all I'm saying.
maybe.
That's all I'm saying, right? But Ivica Zubac now has a backup center of Brooke Lopez behind him with the ability for John Collins to also play backup five in small ball situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get Kawhi Leonard and you now understand the formula of how to manage his season. Last year was the healthiest he ever was going into the postseason. And for the most part, it did show out as positively as you possibly could pull from, right? Bradley Beal has to be itching to play postseason basketball again because it feels like this man has not seen the playoffs in quite some time. And now he has a chance to really step in and shine back on the big stage, which, again, I think a lot of people forgot that Bradley Beal's like a 50-40-85 guy, and he did that last year on a team that was completely out of sorts, even next to Kevin Durant and
Mm-hmm.
Devin Booker, who are, of course, going to be your go-to scoring options. Like, Bradley Beal is a good player, bro. He just overpaid. He got overrated because he got basically overrated, or I guess in this sense has now become underrated, simply because his price tag is overblown. That's
Yeah,
really how it happened, right?
100%.
So now you look at him on this price point that he has on the LA Clippers because you don't have to look at the wave and stretch anymore, right? That's for the Phoenix Suns to worry about. But if you're looking at the value for what the Clippers were able to get paying for a guy like Bradley Beal, that value plus what he brings to the table, he's essentially one of the biggest budget ballers of the season coming up next year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you put him next to facilitators like James Harden and Chris Paul with the spacing next to guys like James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, John Collins, who can all shoot the three ball at 37+% on pretty decent volume. You now open the court up for him in a real way that's very different than last season, where he was around a bunch of guys who love the mid range. So this Clippers team, you add Chris Paul into the mix, and let me double down on him because he's the most important of our
Of
conversation here.
course, yeah.
Chris Paul might be on the most talented version of the Clippers that he ever played with, even dating back to those Lob City days, in my personal opinion.
Up and down, probably. Up and
Yeah,
down, yeah. Maybe
yeah,
not the top end talent because obviously you got prime Blake Griffin, you got prime
yeah.
DeAndre Jordan, Jamal Crawford, 6 man of the year. But in terms of a 10-man rotation, for sure, 100%.
Definitely. I would say, of course, when you say top end talent, again, that goes back to like if this was 2017, oh, buddy, it's a whole different animal. But even in 2025, 2026, this is a team that if you look at a 10-man rotation where you list the names off and you say, we got James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard, John Collins, Ivica Zubac, Chris Paul coming off the bench, Chris Dunn, who could have been an all NBA caliber defender last year, but
Yeah,
not to mention Ivica Zubac
yeah,
was in the running for DPOY last year. Let's
yeah,
not forget that. But you still have Derrick Jones Jr. on the team. You bring in Brook Lopez. You still got Bogdan on the squad. You still
yeah,
got Nicholas Batum, who's a good ball mover, good glue guy as
yeah.
well. Like, yo, this
11 deep.
team,
11 deep.
a strong 11 deep. And that's
Yeah,
something that you can make. You can go back throughout Chris Paul's entire career. And although the talent might not match up across the board, because you got to think about some of them teams, right?
yeah,
But if you talk about top to bottom, 11-man rotation, this might be the most talented team that Chris Paul has played on front to back. And also with it being his last final chance to make a championship run, I think it might be his best chance to win a chip, given the fact that, let's be honest, if you get out of the Western Conference this year, this might be the best chance for the West to get back on to be able to go back and go back to back in terms of lifting the Larry O'Brien, bro. Like, because whoever come out the East, I'm not saying it's sweet, but it's definitely a little different. But if you come out
yeah.
of this Western Conference, you basically get named as the champion before you even lift the trophy, bro.
What I will say is that, and we've seen this at least over the past like 8 years. I mean, we talked about this on like multiple occasions. It's a
For
different
sure.
champion every year. But
Yeah, right.
if the cookie crumbles, if situations go like hand in hand,
Yeah.
if the Clippers can stay healthy, obviously there's so many question marks with this team. Obviously, they got this much depth because of their top stars being who they are. let's be completely
Yup.
honest, Jay. We know who
Yup.
Kawhi Leonard and James Harden are, especially in the last few years of their career. We know the availability issue is there. Shout out to James Harden though, played 79 games last year. He was
Yeah.
definitely available.
Mhm.
But if things fall the right way, this Clippers team is deep enough. We've seen that
Shoot.
depth has become even more prevalent when it comes to the NBA Finals, a la the OKC Thunder, a la
Mhm.
the Indiana Pacers we just saw this past postseason. The West is still super deep. I'm not going to take anything away. Am I going to take them over the Rockets? Probably not. Am I taking them over the Thunder? Probably not. Even probably not taking them over the new and improved Denver Nuggets. But
Mhm.
can they be in the mix with the Lakers, the Timberwolves, the Warriors, the Grizzlies? Yes. And would I put them
Yes.
like in the top two of probably those teams? Probably. So I'm super happy about this team. Chris Paul gives them exactly what they need. And you can put him in just different situations in terms of the lineup. He fits it with everyone. Still one of the smartest players in the league. Still one of the best table setters in the league. One of the best mid-range jumpers. And you can only ask him to play like 15, 20 minutes a game. That's the
Facts.
best. That's the best situation. I think
Yeah.
it's a great way for him to end his career back where he was probably at his best. Some people will say, he was a top 3, top 4 MVP guy with the Pelicans, but obviously
Mhm.
this most team success came as a member of the Clippers.
Mhm.
I think this is a great way to end his career. I think it's the perfect guy you need to add to this team. Obviously, people are thinking, oh, what's going to happen with Chris Dunn? Him and Chris Dunn can fit next to each other just fine.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect signing. I think I'm excited for this Clippers team. The unction is here, bro. Let's see how long until they break down.
Yeah, nah, facts, bro. I mean, it's funny that you phrase it that way too, man. Because I mean, between them, I mean, especially when you factor in injuries, right? I think the return of Kyrie Irving and the health status of guys like Kawhi Leonard and James Harden going into the postseason are the biggest X factors in the Western Conference. Because I think that the Mavericks and the Clippers could be two dark horse championship caliber teams this upcoming season. But
Oh,
it's
I
all
forgot about
really
the
just gonna
Mavericks.
come
Yeah,
down
I
to
forgot about the
that
Mavericks.
it's just all gonna come down to their health. If Kyrie Irving is healthy, that Dallas Mavericks team, completely different trajectory when you think about the fact that they're gonna have Cooper Flag, Anthony Davis. You have a guy like D'Angelo Russell now coming off the bench instead of being your starting point guard. All of the depth that they already have. And then the Clippers, if they have a healthy Kawhi Leonard, we always peg them as a team that could be a potential championship caliber team just off of that phrase alone. Now, you can make the argument Kawhi Leonard is playing on the most talented version of the LA Clippers that he's ever been on in the same way, right? At least from a depth perspective.
Hmm.
Now, that one gets a little tricky because you got to think about those San Antonio Spurs teams, of course, right? But at least in terms of the Clippers teams he's played on over the last couple of years, this might be the most well-rounded version of the team built around him that he's ever had. So this is a really good shot for this team to make some noise. And again, health is going to be a big concern, but health has been a concern for this team every single season since the Clippers acquired Kawhi Leonard. This just might be their best chance to really withstand it, given that they have a blueprint from last year to build on, and now an even deeper team to be able to build this team up. Man, we're going to have to watch out for the Clippers, dog.
100%. I just hope they can keep it together. That's all you have to hope for with this Clippers team, if they can just keep it together. And now they have the depth just in case people do go down. They at least have something as a backup plan, which I'm super happy about. It's a great move from the Clippers so far. Definitely one of the winners of the offseason. We talked about the Nuggets doing well. The Clippers have done pretty well themselves, as well as helping out with their team and their depth moving forward. Jay, one more move we have to make before we go on to our top 10 list. One more point to talk about. Obviously, maybe not as like legacy level as a Chris Paul or a Damian Lillard, but a pretty interesting move nonetheless, because Marcus Smart was released from the Washington Wizards and then signed a 2-year, $11 million deal with the Los Angeles Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
What's the most interesting thing about the story for me, Jay, is after the news came out that he signed, it came out that this was a Luka Doncic requested signing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jay, he probably was thinking back to the days where Marcus Smart was defending him 94 feet back up and down the floor, and he thought, better him be my ally than playing against him. So they bring in Marcus Smart, add some depth to the backcourt. Jay, quick thoughts on Marcus Smart going to the Lakers. I think this is a pretty, low risk, high reward type of move.
Yeah, man, I think it's a very important signing for them as well. Actually, TV, it's funny. A couple of days prior, I believe it was a day or two prior, an article came out saying that they were specifically trying to look for a guy that could add real point of attack defense to their team, right? And of course, that's understandable given the fact that they just moved off of Dorian Finney-Smith at the point, who you can make an argument was not only their best perimeter defender at the time, but also was probably one of their better like rim defenders at the time at a forward spot.
A all-around defense. It was him and freaking Vanderbilt at that point. So yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So when you think about what they gave up in Dorian Finney-Smith, that took away a significant asset for them in terms of their point attack defense. So the first thing you think of, right, is of course, the Alex Caruso type for this team is going to be very important because defensively speaking, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves. Not trying to be a hater, but you know what I mean? DeAndre Ayton as a rim protector, not screaming defense right now. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah.
So a point of attack defense is going to be, of course, an important thing for them this upcoming season. And Marcus Smart definitely fills the archetype in terms of what he brings to the table. The biggest question is going to be whether or not Marcus Smart can turn back the clock. That's going to be the most important thing. And nobody's asking.
It's been a while since we've seen him on like a true contender type of team, and in a good like role in that sort of sense, if you know what I'm talking about.
No, I definitely understand what you mean. I think the most important thing is, right, that you're not asking Marcus Smart to turn back into DPOY Marcus Smart, right?
Yeah.
But can Marcus Smart return back into just being an all-NBA caliber defender? I think one of the most important things for Marcus Smart on this team is very similar to the role that he accepted just slightly before he ended up being moved to Memphis, right? Which is the idea of understanding that you do not need to be an offensive point guard in order to be effective on this team. Look at the team that he had. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, right? You look at the squad that they had running with Al Horford as a stretch big. There was more than enough offense to go around. The idea for Marcus Smart was to set the tone defensively and be a guy that creates a culture around playing hard and being effective on the floor on both sides, right? That's what this Lakers team needs. If you think about last season, remember, this Lakers team finished third in the Western Conference when the season ended. A lot of people forget that, or at least don't factor that in as much because the team is so bad roster-wise right now. But this team actually overachieved given the circumstances last season, finishing atop the Western Conference in that spot where, honestly, had they had a better big man at the center position going into the playoffs, maybe they last a little bit longer and don't get smacked up by the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? But this Marcus Smart acquisition brings a certain level of culture to this team, number one. Number two, I think he's a very good signing when you think about a guy like DeAndre Ayton. Why? Because the biggest question mark around Ayton is not his defensive capabilities or what his offensive skill set is. It's always been his motor. It's always been his motor. And having a guy like Marcus Smart on the team could be very beneficial for that when you also pair the fact that, let's be real, DeAndre Ayton, This time with the Los Angeles Lakers are going to be a defining moment for him because it could be the difference between him getting a lucrative long-term deal and being a guy who floats around for one-and-ones and one year options moving forward with a bunch of different rosters. Because let's be honest, you don't play well next to LeBron James, it starts to get real spooky for your career afterwards, right? So this is going to be a big time moment for him in terms of being able to revitalize his career. Marcus Smart could be a guy who could really unlock the motor of DeAndre Ayton and bring a much needed defensive identity back to this Lakers team that has always been great. With LeBron James on the roster, this team has always been great when they had a defensive infrastructure. They always have, dating back to the year they won the freaking championship. You know what
Obviously,
I mean?
obviously, there's no Anthony Davis now, but I 100% agree with you with the Marcus Smart thing. He is there for culture. He is there for defensive leadership. He is there to be the enforcer, Jay, because you need the person when the star goes down. Luka Doncic, LeBron James, someone to get up all in everyone's face. You need to have the guy when someone is not making the right rotation, not defending at the rim, to be in their face. And who better to be respected than the last guy to win Defensive Player of the Year as a guard? As much as people want to play down that award winning, obviously because the Celtics were just such a great defensive team overall, it felt like more of a team award than it did a individual award for Marcus Smart. But like you mentioned, he's a 3-time All Defensive Player, Defensive Player of the Year. If he brings that energy, if he brings that swagger, if he brings that edge to the Lakers, they will play above their pay grade in terms of defensively. They don't have maybe the assets, they don't have the player personnel to do so. But what Marcus Smart can do, and if Marcus Smart can play at his best, is lift those guys to go above their levels, above what they thought they were capable of. And I think that's what the Lakers are hoping for when bringing him onto this team. Obviously, a low risk, high reward deal being a 2-year, $11 million deal. And you can't really go wrong with this. You need guard depth anyway. You needed someone where you don't have to keep relying on Gabe Vincent on a 99 basis being your backup point guard. He could play the 1 or 2. And there's going to be situations, Jay, where he could possibly play a small ball 3, maybe just like play a 3-guard lineup with him, Austin Reeves, and Luka Doncic at some points. He just fits in a lot of different scenarios. And I think it's like a small sort of deal that's going to really help the rotation. I think the Lakers getting Marcus Smart is an underrated signing because we haven't seen Marcus Smart in a great winning situation. Even when he was with the freaking Memphis Grizzlies, Ja Morant was injured all the time, so they really couldn't see that Grizzlies team at their best. But going to the Washington Wizards, obviously playing mentor role there, now going back to a team with real title aspirations. Hopefully that unlocks Marcus Smart and helps him, establish himself as a real leader there, especially on the defensive end for the Lakers.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting Lakers team. They're another dark horse kind of team because of the fact that, of course, at the end of the day, the first thing that's going to be said is if you have Luka Doncic on your team and you have LeBron James on your team, you have a chance to do anything, right? But I think the ability that the ability to fill out this roster in a real way with a couple of small signings here and there, right? Jake LaRavia bringing in DeAndre Ayton, then being able to bring in Marcus Smart as well. Very on the margin. I don't necessarily know if they're difference-making moves just yet. But at the same time, if they're able to get the most out of these guys, there's a real chance that the Lakers are going to be heard from this next season. And it's going to be really important because it's going to set a tone. You got to remember, LeBron James is expiring contract, and so is Luka Doncic. So a lot of things are going to be made clear this upcoming summer, but all of that's going to be built off of how this upcoming season goes.
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers didn't make many moves this offseason, but the one move that they did make so far with the Marcus Smart thing, obviously they lost Dorian Finney-Smith, like you mentioned earlier. Hopefully this does bring the culture change that the Lakers are desperately needing. But yeah, in terms of these three moves, let us know down below what you guys think. Do you like these moves? Do you not like these moves? Your thoughts on these guys and the fits on the team? We want to hear all of your thoughts down below. But Jay, let's move past those point guards, Jay. It's time to talk the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme, the best point guards in the league. Yeah. Top 10. For me, Jay, this is probably going to be the toughest list out of all 5 positions.
Yeah, this one was really hard, especially when you think about coming into next season. Some of the best names might not play next year, which made the list even more difficult because we factored that in when we put our top 10 list together.
Yes, and before we get into the top 10 list, like Jay mentioned, we had to discuss this before the episode. who are we including, who are we not including. We are not including these three names because of their status going into next year. Obviously, Tyrese Halliburton, if he was on this list, one of the best point guards in the league, no question
Yeah.
about it. But he's gonna miss all of this year with an Achilles injury. Same thing with Mr. Damian Lillard. Probably would have been on this top 10 list, but same thing, Achilles injury. Bad news to number 0, man. Bad news for the number 0. And then the third guy, Kyrie Irving. We were debating whether or not to add him on this list, but Jay, I think you said something about him saying something on the stream or something.
Yeah, he said something on his Twitch stream that basically somebody had commented in his Twitch stream talking about hopefully him being able to come back for the postseason. And I think he quote said like, "Don't hold your breath," basically kind of indicating that like he's going to take his time, as he should, by the way. He has a long-term signed deal, obviously has some real guaranteed money, and this Dallas Mavericks team isn't going anywhere anytime soon, right? Especially with the acquisition of Cooper Flag this summer from the NBA draft. Like, this is a team that does have, you know, you hate to say it given what their GM has pulled over the last year, but they do have a 2 to 3 year window to work within, and Kyrie Irving's health is a big infrastructure block of that, and him coming back too early could derail that. So the importance of him taking his time is going to be a big thing to keep tabs
100%.
on this upcoming season. So if he does come back by January, February, obviously that changes the narrative around what we would say for this guy, and TV for, you know, context places. He'd probably still be within the top 6. I think honestly, if we knew he was coming back by January, it would probably knock him down a peg or two, just simply out of the fact that we wouldn't get a full sample size of what he would be able to do next season.
Yeah.
But from a talent perspective, I think Kyrie Irving would definitely still come in as a top 5, top 6 point guard next year, even coming off the ACL tear. So obviously, I'm just throwing that out so you guys understand that if he were on the list, trust me, he'd be firmly on the list. The fact that he's not on the list is strictly built out of the fact that the injury is one that we cannot necessarily determine just how soon he'll come back or if he'll play at all next year. And we don't want to include anybody on next year on the list for the top point guards going into next year. If next year, my boy,
it's not guaranteed. Basically not guaranteed for them. So we just to get rid of all doubt, just to get rid of any sort of, you know, question marks and sort of that, we just not include him on the list. So no Kyrie Irving, no Damian Lillard, no Tyrese Halliburton. Those are off the board.
Right.
We're gonna go through our top 10, and like we did last year, we're gonna go 10 to 6. We're gonna name our 10 to 6. We're gonna give some honorable mentions to beforehand, and then we're gonna go back and forth with our top 5. Jay, sound good?
Yep.
I'm gonna throw it over to you real quick before you go into your 10 to 6. Some honorable mentions that you had that just didn't make your list.
So my honorable mentions, I had 2. Obviously, Bulls bias had me throw on Kobe White here, but I do think he is a player that I think would be a hot commodity on the trade block. He's already been a guy that's been highly discussed as a dude who could be moved this upcoming season. Him and Ayo Dosunmu, obviously for different reasons. Ayo brings more of a 3-and-D element. Kobe White is an on-ball offensive generator that can just give you instant offense. And I would love to see him play on a contender because, boy, the Bulls are holding him by the hair disrespectfully right now, putting him in a position to not be able to play high-level basketball. But he was probably at my 12 spot. And then the other guy that I left off the list just barely, Jamal Murray, man. Don't get me wrong. I wanted to throw him on this top 10 list, and he was a guy that I was definitely going to include. But last year put me in a really weird spot, man. Postseason-wise, particularly, he just dealt with injuries a lot of last season, put him in a really bad spot in terms of what he was able to do offensively. And last year was the first time I saw him play next to Nikola Jokic, and he didn't feel like the second best player on the floor at all times. Like, when he plays next to Nikola Jokic, they feel like one of the most dynamic duos in the entire NBA. And last year felt like the first time where it really felt like he was starting to like drift away from being that caliber of a dude. It was the first time where we were talking about Jamal Murray and it didn't feel like he was that fringe all-star caliber point guard that we've been kind of throwing him in conversations with for the last 2 to 3 years prior. So he just barely missed my top 10, but a guy who I think could easily vault himself back on with a strong year, especially given the fact that, the Denver Nuggets look lethal. And if Jamal Murray is back on
he's healthy, man. If he's healthy. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Before we go into our 10 to 6, I'll give you my honorable mentions as well. Man, point guard is so deep, bro. Point guard is such a deep position. It was so hard to even think who to leave off of this list. I don't have De'Aaron Fox on this list in the top 10.
Interesting. Okay.
And I don't have LaMelo Ball.
Okay, I don't have LaMelo either, for what it's worth.
I don't have LaMelo Ball. Those are my 2 honorable mentions, obviously. Dynamic point guards. Top 10 point guards obviously, like you can put him like in that conversation. But it's just such a deep position, Jay. It's just such a deep position. It's really hard who to include, who not to include. I didn't really give much consideration to Jamal Murray. Again, it's just even without those three guys that we mentioned before, I didn't
Fair.
even give an honorable mention to Jamal Murray. That's how deep the point guard position is in the NBA. And it's just going to continue to get better. Let's just hope for that. But Jay, I'm going to throw it over to you. You're 10-6.
All right, man. So let's start at number 10. I put Tyrese Maxey at the 10 spot.
Okay.
Might have a little bit of recency bias with last year. He could have been a player that maybe was a little bit higher. At number 9, I'm putting Darius Garland. At number 8, this is why I said it was so interesting. This is where I have De'Aaron Fox at. I'm a little high on him going into next season. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be transparent. There's a little bit of bias towards the San Antonio Spurs going into next season. And then at number 7, I have Trae Young, who I wish I could have put a little bit higher, but man, I got to see what they do with the Hawks, revamping their roster next season.
Yeah.
And then number 6, the boys coming back on Demon Time. I have Ja Morant at the 6th spot.
Okay. It's interesting. I wonder if you're gonna have one of your guys as a shooting guard now. Now looking at your list.
Okay. Let's see what you have.
Okay, so
maybe I do.
My 10-6.
Okay.
We both have Tyrese Maxey at number 10.
Okay.
Number 9, Ja Morant. I'm a Ja Morant defender to the day I die.
That's why it's so funny.
So I'm a Ja Morant guy. Jay, we've been doing this podcast for 3 years now. You know how much I defend Ja Morant.
Yes. Yes.
But postseason wise, availability wise, he has not looked like the guy from 2021, 2022. And I'm not saying he's not a top 10 point guard, but I'm tempering my expectations. That's all I'm saying for Ja Morant coming into next season.
Fair.
Number 8. I know he had a rough end to last season, but I still have a lot of him going into this season. Darius Garland.
Okay.
I have him at number 8.
Okay.
Number 7, Trae Young as well. I have him at the 7th position.
There. Okay.
And number 6, this is what I'm talking about, where I think maybe you might have this guy at the shooting guard position. I'm having him in the point guard position.
Okay.
Give me James Harden.
Okay, yeah. So I had James Harden as a 2.
Okay.
I had James Harden as a 2. That's probably my fault. Honestly, if I had to put James Harden on this list, though, it's interesting because I feel like I would have to bump Tyrese Maxey off because I don't want to take De'Aaron Fox off yet. That's probably on me, though, because let's be honest, James Harden probably is going to start at the 1 next year.
Yeah.
Like, just kind of definitively because Bradley Beal is probably going to be the starting point guard. Starting shooting guard.
I just assumed to put him at the
Interesting. Okay, if I had to include James Harden on this list, I would probably bump Tyrese Maxey off, and I would probably put James Harden. Ironically, I'd probably put him above De'Aaron Fox going into next season as well.
So, okay, let's put James Harden on this list, just so when we go to shooting guards, when we go to shooting guards, we can have kind of consistent list.
Consistent list. So if I had to reread it at my 10 spot, it would be Darius Garland.
Yeah.
At the 9 spot, it would be De'Aaron Fox. At 8, it would be James Harden.
Okay.
At 8, it would be James Harden. I would have Trae Young still at 7, and I would have Ja Morant still at 6.
Okay. I like it.
Yes.
Honestly, not much to kind of go through here because we're both pretty similar. The De'Aaron Fox thing, yes, is definitely a question mark. He can 100% be above Tyrese Maxey throughout this season. I do think that Tyrese Maxey, even with an injury-riddled year, he will come back strong. But also, De'Aaron Fox with a new and revamped San Antonio Spurs team should be very interesting.
Yeah.
I am interested to see how this guard rotation is going to look because when you have him, when you have Stephon Castle, when you have Dylan Harper, it's crazy to think that Dylan Harper's coming off the bench, by the way. Still kind of weird to wrap my hand around. But crazy guard rotation. How are they going to manage those minutes? I don't know if that's going to hurt De'Aaron Fox in a way. Obviously, the Spurs have to go best player available there. In theory, it should work with Victor Wembanyama in a strong way. It just sucks that once De'Aaron Fox got to San Antonio, Victor Wembanyama had to leave with the blood clots he had last year. He's good now, which is good to hear.
Yeah.
But then also he ended the season early too, so we didn't get to see much of him on the San Antonio Spurs. That's why I'm kind of iffy on it, especially with the amount of competition at the guard position. But I'm not mad you have him in your top 10.
Yeah, I just think that I'm really high on De'Aaron Fox as one of my, not breakout players necessarily. Obviously, he's a guy who's won Clutch Player of the Year before. He's a guy that's well understood as one of the better guards in the NBA. He's become a little underrated to a certain extent. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that he played in Sacramento, which is a market that doesn't get a
Yes.
whole lot of
Yeah.
burn, right? But I would say that De'Aaron Fox is still a guy that a lot of people have a certain level of respect for. And I think playing on the San Antonio Spurs team where they're going to have high expectations, and remember, just like you mentioned beforehand, with the Dylan Harper situation, and obviously still having Stephon Castle coming off of a big time rookie year, De'Aaron Fox is in a hot seat where I think he's going to have to play really, really well. You look at
He
his
needs to
contract.
outperform himself. He needs to outperform, especially with like these guys breathing down
Yes.
your neck. You
Yes.
need to play at the highest level.
Thank you, TV. I actually think that's a great way to phrase it. You have to look at these young guys. You have to look at both, not just their skill set, but you have to look at their contracts, right? It makes you much more expendable when you have those two guys on very cost-friendly deals that makes it where you can build with those guys long term. And De'Aaron Fox just becomes a long-term like roadblock if you really think about it, as a guy who's nothing more than a big salary on a young team. When you really look at the fact that they had the point guard position pretty shored up. Let's not forget that although he doesn't play point guard, another ball handler on the perimeter, Devin Vassell, another
Yes.
guy who's going to have a really big year to prove that he's a part of this long-term future for a Spurs team that's not looking to waste any time. How do we know that? They were in conversations for trade talks around Kevin Durant and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Even though they didn't pull the trigger, this is a team that at any moment could make a move that could put them in a totally different echelon than the one they're sitting in right now. Just because Giannis hasn't been traded yet doesn't mean Giannis ain't still on the trade block potentially by the end of the season, or definitely, at least by as early as the trade deadline, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a San Antonio Spurs team that wants to win, but also understands the long game that comes with the fact that they have so many draft picks on them, not just for this season, but moving forward with the way they've positioned themselves. This team with De'Aaron Fox needs to play really well to make it worth keeping him around at the price point that he's at, which makes me feel like De'Aaron Fox is going to come out and have a breakout season, or at least a high level all-star caliber season on a team that, hey man, really just has to prove they're not the third best team in Texas, right? Because that's the
That's
first
gonna be a
battle they're fighting up
dogfight.
against.
And that's gonna be a
Is that
dogfight over there. So yeah,
yeah,
no,
man?
can he be a top 10 player, point guard in this league this year? 100%. He can easily be in that like 25 points, 7 assists sort of realm. Next to Victor Wembanyama, helping push the pace. He can really help out the Spurs system going forward. It's just there's some other guys on the team, and if he doesn't, you know, over exceed those expectations, it's going to be an interesting scenario. But looking at our list so far, Jay, very similar names on this list. I don't think like there's not anything you saw on my list that you want to call out. I'm just surprised that you're like a lot higher on John Morant this year than me, because this feels like a switch of roles in that sort of sense.
Yeah, I think that was so interesting, and that's why I started cracking up, because usually you're the guy that usually pushes for John Morant, and I'm the one that kind of has him on this like revenge tour type of season. But I think that it just kind of comes down to, again, you said this a lot last year, right? Because we've had a little bit of a mutual agreement about this when we talked about Kawhi Leonard once upon a time,
Yeah,
right? This idea of like, if you have to keep attaching the if healthy or when healthy tag to a guy, you have to be
it has
careful
such
about
a
how
shelf life.
long.
That has a shelf life. That tag has a
Yeah.
shelf life. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
you have to be careful about how long you stick around when it comes to staying on that
100%.
bandwagon, right? And I'm not surprised that you jumped ship, or at least we're a little bit more hesitant to jump on the bus, right? But at the
Hesitant's the
same
word.
time,
That's the word. Yeah.
yeah, but I think at the same time, it's a fair way to respond to it. I just have a I think I have a higher belief in the fact that he's a guy that I think could be a dude who returns back to form for a Memphis Grizzly team that is going to be fighting really hard in the Western Conference. And it's going to be interesting. The question I actually had was more around your thoughts around James Harden, because you had him
Ooh,
significantly higher. And again, shoot, you had to remind me like, hey, yo, remember, this guy's a point guard, and for this LA Clippers team, like, he could be special. So
he's
what are your thoughts on the fact that you had him as a top 6 guy on this list, as I think also the oldest guy of the guys we have, not only on the
so
list in
far.
general,
So
but
I
I
mean,
think in general?
it should be in general, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
okay, it's no surprise we're gonna have Curry on this list, right? So
Oh,
I
yeah,
think,
right,
yeah,
of course, yeah.
yeah, I think he is like a little older than Curry. But I will say about James Harden, he proved to me last year that he is still in the mix with all of these, these young up and coming, these guys going into their prime. He's right in the mix of all of them, Jay. Still one of the league leaders in assists, still one of the best table setters in the league, still a top end scorer, was all NBA last year, was an NBA All-Star, a point guard of a playoff team who almost got to the second round. He's just continued to show me that even at his older age, he's able to still be the floor general for the team, still be able to be a setup man, and he understands his role of not being the number one scorer at all times. And I think he's fully embraced the fact of being the true floor general for this team. And he's still putting great numbers next to it. Solid turnover numbers as well, not too high. Still pretty like the efficiency is probably the biggest issue with him for sure. But man, James Harden could still just rock with the young guys. I know maybe it doesn't look like 2017 James Harden or anything like that, but he has embraced the role of being the true point guard. I mean, in the past we've seen him play alongside other point guards like a CP3. Funnily enough, they're back together, but he has embraced the real role of the point guard, being the table setter, making that his main priority. And I think he's still one of the best in the league at that. That's why I still have him just outside of my top 5. But I do think there's a little bit of a gap there.
Yeah, I think James Harden is such such an interesting inclusion because although he's one of the older point guards on this list, you kind of forget that he's a guy that can average a double-double, like a calm 21 and 10, 21 and 11 type of dude.
Yeah.
And then you also look at the makeup of this team, right? Just what they have from a facilitation perspective. He's going to be able to get a lot of really easy situations just built off of giving Bradley Beal the ball, pick and roll opportunities with Ivica Zubac, pick and pop opportunities with Brook Lopez. Like there's so much
100%.
more versatility. And I think you can make an argument that Brook Lopez would be the first stretch big archetype that James Harden has played with, if you kind of look back throughout history.
If you look at stretch 5s, definitely, because he's had to play with DeMontis Monteudis. He's had to play with Omar Ashik. He had to play with Clint Capella. For sure, yeah, I think he's definitely, for sure, like in that realm. And of course, Nicholas Claxton when he was part of the Nets.
The Brooklyn Nets, yeah.
Yeah,
so when you really think about it, there's no real it gives a completely different perspective in terms of playing with a big, right? He's so used to playing with the rim rollers, like you mentioned beforehand, Clint Capella, Dwight Howard, obviously being another one as well. Yeah. So those are interesting fits. But then you look at a guy like Brook Lopez, who you can kick the ball out to or shoot. Brook Lopez, even at his older age, is a guy I feel like you can give the ball in a low block. You have to remember, he was a dude who was one of the best centers in the league as a dude who operated mainly as a back to the basket center once upon a time. I think he still is due for, 2 or 3 post touches a game for the Clippers. And he could be a really good asset for them as well. So when you look at James Harden, I thought he was such an interesting an interesting inclusion because honestly, when you think about what he brings to the table, he honestly should still be considered as a top 10 point guard in the league. He's just doing it a different way than what we're used to seeing him do in years past. Yeah.
This isn't 2017 James Harden where he's out there averaging 36 a game. He's not the guy to basically takes on 70 to 80% of the offense. This is a James Harden more inclusive of the other guys, making sure that they get theirs before he gets his. So yeah, those are our 10 to 6. Moving into our top 5, Jay. I noticed that you have none of my guys in the top 5 in your 10 to 6, so I feel we're gonna have a lot of similar names, maybe different order, but it should be interesting. Jay, I'm gonna throw over to you. You're number 5.
All right, so at number 5, I have Cade Cunningham here. At number 4,
let's go one by one.
That's right. We're going one by one. That's right. I forgot. My bad. Yeah, so at number 5, Cade Cunningham. And number 5, Cade Cunningham. Yep.
That's perfect. We both have Cade Cunningham at number 5. I'll start it off here. Cade Cunningham has showed this year that he basically got the Devin Booker year, if you remember a couple years ago, where we knew Devin Booker was a good player. We knew that he was a great player, but how he would be on a playoff team, a team that was ready to compete. This was the Cade Cunningham year for that. Devin Booker obviously made that huge jump from not making the playoffs, being in that 8-0 bubble, going to the NBA Finals the next season, I believe it was, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that to that extent for Cade Cunningham, but we got to see him in real playoff basketball. And although the efficiency did go down in the playoffs, he was still one of the, you could argue that at times he was still the best player on the court. He's improved his assist numbers, still a good rebounding point guard. And he's shown that he could be an offense onto himself and still involve the other guys around him. They're still trying to figure out the whole number 2, of course. We don't know how Jane Ivey is going to be coming back and all that. Mm-hmm. But Cade Cunningham as a number 1 option, as a guy who has now had the chance to have a better supporting cast and be able to get those guys involved in the spot positions. He's shown that he is a top point guard in this league. And he's basically confirmed to us what we've known for the last couple of years is he's going to be a top 5 point guard prospect, a top 5 point guard talent. Now we finally got to see it in a decent playoff run.
Yeah, and you also have to think, when you go through this list, So far, could you make the argument that Cade Cunningham is not only the best defender of the players we've listed so far, but he probably is the second best defender of everybody we probably have on this list?
Looking up and down, probably. Yeah, no, not even probably. I think you got number one, who was far from number two. I think,
Mhm.
like obviously, like in terms of their defense, and then two, and the rest is a big, it's a pretty decent gap as well. I know what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah. So if
yeah.
you add his defense, he obviously has positional size that's a lot different from guys like Trey Young, Darius Garland, Tyrese Maxey, right? He has a completely different level of positional size that adds to his frame, gives him a lot more versatility as a guy who can play on and off ball at the point guard position, but can also play as far as play the three for Detroit in certain situations, right? You pair that with the fact he's improved as a three-point shooter. He helps bring real pace to this Detroit Pistons team. They play a lot faster with Cade Cunningham last season as a guy who was much more interested in pushing the ball forward. And Cade Cunningham for the guard position has a really high contest rate both around the rim and on the perimeter. This is a guy who shows a lot of effort on that side. Not a high level, elite level defender or anything like that, but for the point guard position, especially
Not a
when you talk about this
liability.
top 10, definitely not a liability, unlike some of these point guards that we've already discussed. So that changes the dynamic around his conversation because although he's a guy that we only have a real 1 year sample size of in terms of him playing high level, meaningful basketball, the intangibles are there, the skill set is there, and now he's on the trajectory to be able to play around a team that's more built to play in the postseason, which means we might even have a chance to see him, play even more high leverage basketball for this Detroit Pistons team moving forward, which will only further help grow the lore around a guy that was once a number one overall pick and kind of got knocked down a couple pegs because he was on a team that just wasn't that good. Now they're kind of in the mix, and it makes them a team to watch. And Cade Cunningham is a guy that we're going to have to pay attention to as a potential all-star on a season-to-season basis.
Yeah, I'm like, what's funny, Jay, is like I'm looking at my top 10 point guards from last year, and I didn't even have
Mm-hmm.
him as an honorable mention,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty funny. So
Goes to show
this
what
is
a year can do.
so more than anything, this is like the real introduction of Cade Cunningham to the rest of the NBA world. Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as we knew that he was a good player, we would just wait for him. It's the same thing with Devin Booker, like I mentioned, like all those years, like just wait until he gets a competent team around him, a real playoff team, and we could see how good Devin Booker is. When we saw Devin Booker at his peak with the Phoenix Suns, we were arguing he was like a top 10 player in the league. I think Cade Cunningham can get up to that point as well. That's why we both
Mm-hmm.
have him pretty high on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to number 4, Jay. Who do you have in this number 4 position? I feel like this might be the first place where we differ.
Yeah, number 4, I kind of dry snitched on myself here. I said it earlier, but Jalen Brunson is the guy that I put at the 4th spot.
Okay, at number 4 for myself, I have Steph Curry. I got Steph Curry.
It's more of a debate than people are willing to have the conversation
Yes,
about.
and I guess mine is a bit more controversial in the sense when you look at the grand scheme of the point guard position, because Steph Curry obviously best point guard in the league for what, a near decade, for a while. So people seeing him 4th best point guard in the league, how can you do that? Jalen Brunson is really damn good, Jay.
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson's a really damn good player. Obviously, I'm going to talk about Steph Curry here. Best 3-point shooter in the league still. Still one of the most frightening off-ball threats in terms of coming off screens, being able to move up and down the court, being able to move around the perimeter. You have to keep eyes on him at all times. He is one of those players still, Jay, who's a game breaker and has just so much gravity around him that no matter what he's doing on the court, you just need to have at least 1 or 2 eyes locked on him at all times. And you can't put a value to that. There's no number to that because he has shown for year in, year out that he is one of the most dangerous players on the offensive end, one of the most dangerous offensive players in NBA history.
Yeah.
The only reason I would have him below Jalen Brunson in this aspect is he's shown the last couple of years he's not, as durable as he was in the past. Obviously, like his body's broken down like near the end of the seasons the last couple of years.
Mm.
But also, like Steph Curry is not changing games like he did like 5-6 years ago. He's not changing the outlook of the Golden State Warriors. It's not like, okay, you have this guy on your team, you're automatically a top 3 or 4 seed. No. That's just not the case anymore. And that's fine. I mean, the 4th best point guard at what, age 34, 35? That is still really good for someone like Steph Curry. It's just I'm not saying he can't be a number 1 option in this as a point guard, I think we had this discussion last year, Jay, which is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah,
But
it is actually.
I feel like we're gonna have this like conversation. I still think he can do that, but can you rely on him for the 82 games and be able to go on another deep playoff run at his age and all that? I
Yeah.
don't think so. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm still giving him respect. Fourth best point guard in the league is nothing to scoff at, like we mentioned, the most
Yeah.
deep position in the NBA. But I think it's finally time to pass the torch on to this guy, Jalen Brunson, who you're about to talk about, who has been a top point guard these last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, with the Steph Curry thing, you make a really good point. I mean, at the end of the day, the game breaker aspect, right? That's the most important thing when you're talking about a guy like Steph Curry and comparing him to Jalen Brunson, right? Like Jalen Brunson could be a takeover point guard, right? He's a
Yeah.
guy that you can give the ball to, operate at the top of the key. He can get to the line at will, call it foul baiting, call it a foul merchant, do whatever you want to say.
Any shot he
Right.
wants. Yeah.
But he can get any shot he wants. Call it whatever format you want. But at the end of the day, this is a guy who knows how to generate offense at a high level, do it in a real effective way, do it in a very savvy way, right? Not a high level defender. I wouldn't say Steph Curry is a high level defender either. I think Steph is still a better defender than Jalen Brunson. But I think when it comes to being able to get your shots, Jalen Brunson is a guy who just is able to do it in a multitude of different ways in the half court more than anything that makes him so lethal. I just also think that he's so dependent on having the ball in his hands that sometimes it can limit the New York Knicks.
Yes,
and I think
yes.
that's the biggest thing that hurt them in the postseason, particularly in that series against Indiana. It felt like when you shut the water off on Jalen Brunson, it completely took the offense away from the New York Knicks because it's almost like nobody else understood how to operate with the ball in their hands because you just don't expect it. Obviously, one of the bigger things you look back, and particularly with Tom Thibodeau, he's had a history of having this ball dominant, high usage point guard who basically kind of does everything. You put a lot of high level defenders and, big time shooters around him, and he does the most. It's how they turn Derrick Rose. Obviously, the talent was there, but that's also how you turn a guy like Derrick Rose into an MVP, the youngest MVP ever, right? Is by giving him the ball so much that he's undeniable, right? And then when you're also that savvy, or in Derrick Rose's case, that athletic, it creates a situation now where like this guy is going to walk into 25 points a night bare minimum just off the mere fact that this guy is going to get the touches to be able to show out and show off, right? But the defensive aspect paired with the fact that I don't know how well he can operate off the ball because he's done it in spurts, right? We obviously saw it in his time with Luka Doncic, but ever since the Jalen Brunson show became the Jalen Brunson show, his versatility as an offensive player, package-wise, has kind of become much more minuscule. And it's almost like he's not as effective without the ball in his hands. And it's one of those things that I think is still going to be one of the biggest things that the New York Knicks have to address. I think it's why it's so interesting that they got a guy like Jordan Clarkson, for example, on their bench with some of the money that they had paired with Gershon Yabusele. New York Knicks had a really good offseason this summer. But Jalen Brunson, to me, I feel like his lack of an off-ball game, or I guess his deterioration of the off-ball game he once had, has now made him almost more of a one-dimensional point guard from the perspective of what you can expect from him offensively. And although he has so many versatile moves, he's a guy that, like, he has to have the ball to play well. And I just think that when you scale that with Steph Curry, I think Steph Curry's ability to take you out from 3-4 different levels, paired with the fact that he can operate so well with the ball, without the ball just as much as with the ball in his hands, it makes him a guy who, especially when you're ranking dudes, I feel like I can pluck Steph Curry off of the Golden State Warriors and put him on a different roster, and he can still be equally as effective. I feel like with Jalen Brunson, we've gotten to that point with him where now you have to build the roster around him in order for him to be the guy that he's now turned himself into. And if you were to put him on any other team, not that he's not as good, but it changes his dynamism by a significant amount because now the team is not built to give him the ball for 20, 25 shot attempts a night if he plays next to another real all-star player.
I see what you mean, and I understand it because this is more of a conversation that more than people want to believe. As much as like people have been loving Steph Curry over like the last 12, 13 years, especially being at his peak, Jalen Brunson has slowly but surely like got up to that level. And why I put him at number 3? Quickly, Jay, who is that your number 3? I have Brunson at number 3.
Number 3 is Steph Curry.
You have 3. So we basically just have our switch. Okay, cool. This is going to take to me to Jalen Brunson as my number 3. Jalen Brunson has shown on a consistent basis for 2 years in a row that although the offense is solely, a lot of it is solely put on him, he is able to handle that load. And even if he gets punched down multiple times, he's able to get back up every single time, Jay. How many times did this man freaking tweak his ankle throughout the entire postseason? He tweaked
Yo,
it at
for
least
real.
like 9 times. He's a 3-level scorer, one of the best shot creators in the entire league, bar none. He's shown that he not only can play at that level in the postseason, but also take it up to another level. We've seen some massive games out of a Jalen Brunson in the postseason as well. Clutch player of the year, so we know that he could do it when the lights are shining bright. In terms of as an overall offensive threat, I know that Steph Curry has the off ball presence, which like for you, for other people who might have him above Jalen Brunson. But
Mhm.
Jalen Brunson has been such an effective, top tier on ball offensive threat in this league that it's hard for me not to put him this high on the list. He has proven time and time again and shown that he can continue to do this in the playoffs through injury, through all these circumstances, and he could still look like the best player on the court. He has, even in that Pacers series, he's shown that he could still show himself to be the best player on the court. So, as much as I love Steph Curry, as much as I still understand the full skill set he has on the offensive end, especially being off ball, where Jalen Brunson probably doesn't have that. Jalen Brunson
Mhm.
has shown that he is so effective in that lead point guard role
Mhm.
that he is like in that upper echelon with the other two guys that we're gonna have on this list. So I have a feeling we have the same number, the 2 and 1. Just depends on how we have the order. But I think we have
Yeah.
the same order as well. But
Mhm.
Jalen Brunson has really took himself as an offensive weapon up to that level. He's also improved his playmaking as well. That's why I have him in my number 3. I feel like his on-ball impact is really just continuing to grow, and for the availability he's given you over these last 2 years, just slightly above Steph Curry. It's such a conversation. It's
Yeah.
really close. That was like really tough for me, but I do have
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson just slightly above him.
No, shout out you.
Yeah.
First of all, shout out to TV for having the balls to do it too, though, right? Because that's very important to be able to spark this conversation. Because another thing that can be said, and this is where I'll tip the cap to TV as well, is we also have to factor in Tom Thibodeau's impact on what Jalen Brunson's
Yeah.
development as an on-ball player has been, right? He's been a guy, and obviously Tom Thibodeau is no longer on the roster, no longer the coach anymore. I'll talk about that in 1 second, but Tom Thibodeau has always been this kind of coach, as I mentioned earlier, that's been relying on high-level defense, having guys who bring a lot of energy and impact from an effort perspective, and then having one guy that you can run offense through in a way that can keep them steady, hyper-effective, and just make him undeniable, as I mentioned earlier. So the aspect of what Tom Thibodeau does, also paired with the fact that he runs his starters so much, makes it where the play style that Tom Thibodeau institutes for the New York Knicks is also potentially where Jalen Brunson's new developed game is a product of, or it's more. It gives a even clearer aspect of why Jalen Brunson may be the player he is, both for good and for bad. One of the biggest tasks for Mike Brown coming into next season, I think, is going to be his attention to detail on depth, right? You still have Jalen Brunson. You still have Josh Hart, right? You still have Karl Anthony Towns. You bring in Gershon Yabusele, who should be a really solid backup center next year, and had a really good year
Solid year with the
back in the league
76ers.
last year for a
Yeah,
really bad
solid year.
Philadelphia 76ers team last year. And Jordan Clarkson, who's probably been raring to play meaningful basketball for what, the last 3-4 years now?
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
Right? Like, the biggest thing that I think, and obviously they still have Miles McBride, like they have Mikal Bridges still in this team, they have OG Anunoby. Like, one of the biggest things that I think hurt the New York Knicks long term over the last 2 to 3 seasons is the fact that they have had depth and they haven't used it. They haven't used it. This year, this might be the deepest from a talent perspective as well that they've been since getting Jalen Brunson. It's time to open up the playbook a little bit, not just in terms of their play style, but understanding that there's a handful of other guys with a lot of different strong skill sets on this team. Mikal Bridges has on-ball chops that he picked up from playing with Brooklyn. Allow him to run more offense. Jordan Clarkson is an off-the-bench scoring flamethrower. Give him 5 to 6 minutes without Jalen Brunson on the floor where he can just cook. Gershon Yabusele is an athletic forward type at 6'9", 6'10", that can finish around the rim at a high rate and be a guy who also can spread the floor a little bit because he's not afraid to take the 3 ball a little bit. Give him the opportunity to be a rim runner and be something different from Karl Anthony Towns, who's mainly a stretch big. Gershon can stretch the floor, but he's a guy who's a really good play finisher. Give him that opportunity. OG Anunoby, give him 3 to 4 touches where he can just operate off the dribble and get offense going, right? Josh Hart's going to get his kick out threes every now and then throughout the course of the game, right? Open up the fluidity of the offense. I think the most important thing about Mike Brown, because he's a guy who I feel like is very redundant with Tom Thibodeau, right? But I think offensively, and we saw this in the year where it was the big light the beam year for the Sacramento Kings where they made the postseason, his offensive innovation is going to be the biggest voice in the room, I think, for the New York Knicks. Not all the player, coach, rah-rah stuff that we know he's built a history of with the Golden State Warriors, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and so on and so forth, right? I think him bringing offensive structure to this team that goes beyond give Brunson the ball and get the hell out the way, or give Cat the ball and get the hell out the way, is going to be the thing that not only brings this New York Knicks team together, but I think actually ends up making them a top 5 offense next year without having to make Jalen Brunson the hub of everything. And so this could be a year where Jalen Brunson could show off more of those off-ball chops back to kind of what he was able to be when he was with Dallas. Maybe still be a higher effective version of that because, of course, he's the lead guy. He's their MVP caliber player and so on and so forth. But putting so much onus on him might have also diluted his game. May I make the argument, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the Tom Thibodeau basketball style diluted his game. And that's where I'll give you your flowers to say, yo, different head coach, deep basketball team, insanely talented player. Steph Curry is on the back 9 of his career as an aging guy at 34, 35 years old. Jalen Brunson might be that guy that needs to take the torch now. I can see it from your perspective just as much as I can see it from my perspective 100%. Of like Steph Curry is still Steph Curry until he's not.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Right. I mean, what else is there need to be said about Steph Curry though? We basically said it on both of our ends. We know how effective he is in the offensive end. The Warriors are not really doing him much favors with the team with the fact they're not doing really anything this offseason. But any other words for Steph Curry before we move on to our top 2? I mean, he's still, as much as he is, like you said, on the back 9. Again, most gravity in the league, best 3-point shooter. Can't really deny that.
I mean, this is a guy who, like I said before, man, he's a dude that if you drop him on any basketball team, it's very similar to the Kevin Durant effect, right? He's a guy that, because of the versatility he has as an on-ball player, off-ball player, a guy who can hit the teardrop floater at a high rate, a guy who still can operate really well in the mid-range, a dude who can facilitate at a good rate, moves off the ball so well that he creates space for others without even touching the rock. He can initiate offense still at his age. He's a guy who can take guys off the dribble and still finish around the rim. I think he averaged 4 or 5 attempts from the free throw line last season, maybe a little bit more. You know, the Golden State Warriors don't really get to the line a ton, but he's usually the catalyst of getting them to the free throw line a pretty decent amount.
Yeah.
Until Jimmy Butler showed up and obviously skyrocketed that a little bit more, right? So just think at the end of the day, Steph Curry, like I said, I think the best way to phrase it is Steph Curry is still Steph Curry until proven otherwise. And so he's going to be a guy that I think is in the top 3, top 4 conversation until he just completely falls off the cliff. And similar to LeBron James, Steph Curry has not jumped off that cliff yet, and he sure as heck has not been pushed off it. So with that being the case, he's going to be a guy that I think is going to be considered top 3 until he retires, unless something happens that just makes me feel like, yo, Steph Curry might finally be cooked.
Yeah.
But I get the Jalen Brunson argument nonetheless, man. Jalen Brunson is coming for next. He's coming for names and checks, bro. He's coming for names and checks for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not mad at all if Steph Curry is your number 3. We will say though, it is a lot of discussion between him and Jalen Brunson now. They may be a step below the top 2, but they are in a great conversation with each other. So me and Jay both have Curry and Brunson. We just have it in opposite order. Top 2 though, Jay. I have a feeling we have the same 2 names. Yeah. Will we have the same order? Who do you have at your number 2?
Luka Doncic is number 2, right?
Luka Doncic is number 2. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. We'll go quickly. Luka Doncic. We know one of the most killer offensive arsenals in NBA history. We don't even have to say in like the NBA today, in NBA history. Jay, go ahead about Luka Doncic.
Yeah, man. I mean, cue the Luka glaze, bro. I mean, 3-level scorer, off the ball guy who can still operate in a real way, creating gravity, triple-double threat on any night, high-level rebounder for the position. Not a good defender by any means, but competitive on that side of the ball nonetheless, and I'll give him his credit there. Right? A dude who can give you real pick and roll operation next to a lob threat. I think it's going to be really important for DeAndre Ayton's career to play next to a guy like Luka Doncic, because if we're being honest, he's never had a facilitator like him before. And with his athleticism, he could walk into 8 to 10 points next year just simply off of lobs and rim runs, right? Like, this could be a guy that could be really dangerous just by playing next to Luka Doncic. And that goes to the next thing that I want to say, which is something we haven't said too much about a lot of the other guys on our list. But Luka Doncic just makes a lot of the guys around him better, right? By opening up the floor, getting them in real good positions, hitting them in the shooting pocket, right? Different things of that nature that just help him as a high-level IQ player. He doesn't do it with athleticism the way some of the guys on our list, like a Ja Morant, does, or he doesn't do it necessarily with speed the way a guy like Darius Garland or De'Aaron Fox or Tyrese Maxey does. He does it with a lot more savviness. He does it in a way that he operates. I think he might be, I may or may not be wrong with this, but I think Luka Doncic might be the best half-court operator of any point guard on this list. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has a decent argument for that, but I think that Luka Doncic, in terms of three phases, right, the ability to score from beyond the arc, score within the mid-range, and also facilitate within a half-court setting, I think Luka Doncic is the full package in terms of being a guy who can lead an offense in the half-court setting, which, of course, is so important in the postseason. So I think that Luka Doncic brings so much to the table, not to mention from a postseason performance perspective. Hey, don't get it twisted. I know that Minnesota series went a lot differently than a lot of us expected, but Luka Doncic is still one of the best postseason performers of, the modern day age in terms of what he's been able to do in such a short time. So, I mean, everything that you could say about Luka Doncic from a performance perspective, outside of his defensive, lack of capabilities or his defensive insufficiencies, I mean, this is a guy that's one of the most complete offensive players in the league, and definitely one of the guys that dominates the position when you compare size, playmaking, everything together, man. So
I mean, you basically said it all there.
Yeah.
We usually deduct marks off people for being not a great defender, and I think we saw it in the Timberwolves series too. As much as he tried to say it for the people, you could tell got tired easily. They were definitely targeting him in the backcourt, and for a lot of people, that will bring them down heavily. Not when you look at Doncic, not when you're someone who, no matter what team you're on, you have a chance to go all the way. You have a chance to go all the way. He will backpack you and will take you all the way. That is how much of an offensive force this man is.
Yeah.
Not only is he a genuine 30-piece per night, he could be a 35, 40-piece, and he can also give you a triple-double along the same time. He affects the offense in such a massive way. And we talk about gravity. When you have Luka Doncic on the court, yes, maybe the off-ball capability is not there as Steph, but he's still a solid offense as a solid off-ball player. But on ball, it's almost nothing like him that we've seen in this modern era. And we have to really put a lot of focus on that. And there's a reason why the Lakers swung for the fences. If you have a chance to trade for one of the a generational offensive player like Luka Doncic, you go for it. You mess up your entire current timeline to make this happen, and they did it. And they did that with Luka Doncic. He is the only player that we've seen in NBA history to dethrone LeBron as the number one guy on the team. And I know it's an older LeBron, but he's still dethroned LeBron nonetheless. So, elite offensive player, all three levels, is an absolute game breaker. One of the most there's not much to say about this guy. He's just such a good such a good player, and just a genuine top 3 MVP candidate every year. There's not many players you could say that in the history of the game, and Luka Doncic is still doing that at this young age.
Yeah, definitely just a special player. Obviously, his youth obviously adds to the listing as well. Just a guy that I felt like, I mean, like you said, this part of the list is where things get easy.
Yeah, which means at number 1, I swear me and Jay have he is along with DeMar DeRozan. This guy just might be the number 2 guy keeping this being the bridge of this podcast. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP, Finals MVP, Conference Finals MVP, borderline all defensive player, one of the best players in the half court set, the most deadly mid range jumper of the entire league. What else to say about this guy? He has proven time and time again that he is a top point guard in this league. He's shown he can do it on both ends. Elite as a 3-level scorer. He's an elite basketball player. Argument now to the point where we can put him in the arguments as best player in the league. We're gonna have a whole list of that further down the line. But Shea Alexander is that guy, and he's proven that he could be a number one on a championship team, as shown as this last season.
Yeah, man. And I mean, again, cue the SGA glaze, bro. Generational run, right? Number one seed in the Western Conference, wins the MVP, wins finals MVP, gets a new shoe, listed as the 2K cover athlete for NBA 2K26. Like, you go down the list, man, this guy has put together one of the most complete seasons in NBA history. We haven't seen a guy win MVP and finals MVP since Steph Curry, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is a guy who's doing it in a totally different way. Like, he's not the hyper athlete point guard. He's not the kill you with three-point deadliness like Steph Curry has been for the last handful of years. Like, he's doing it in the way that, I mean, don't get me wrong, the foul merchant stuff that a lot of people get on, that's one of the things that maybe a lot of people turn to.
It's overblown.
But I agree. I think it's a little bit overblown, but I also think that it just goes to show you, like, he's a guy, and Baron Davis said this, like, you're gonna foul guys that you can't stop. And Shea Alexander proved last season that he was one of the most unstoppable players in the NBA last year, and has been a guy that's developed over the last 4 to 5 seasons as a guy that was meant, I think, in my personal opinion, to get to this echelon. I've said it a million times on this podcast throughout the time that me and TV have been recording, and even dating the back to before the Hit Your Free Throws podcast was a thing when me and TV were talking basketball, man. Shea Alexander, to me, is my favorite point guard in NBA history, right next to Derrick Rose. And the reason why is because Shea Alexander did it in a way that not a lot of people can say they built their legacy off of, right? Drafted in the back half of the lottery, goes to a team that's playoff ready with Patrick Beverly, Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell on those guys. He plays on that squad, plays above expectations as a guy who gets real minutes in the rotation despite their guard depth. Ends up getting moved to Oklahoma City as a team that kind of was on the rise, but still in the middle of going through a real transitional period. Plays next to Chris Paul, plays next to Dennis Schroeder as the third option, and learns just how to be an effective player at the point guard position. Grows into being the lead guard for this Oklahoma City Thunder team, handed the baton, and since then has only gotten better. All-star, all-NBA, all NBA multiple times, MVP discussions, and now, MVP and, finals winner. So this is a guy that I think has one of the most complete careers already, just off of what he's been able to do in this early time of his career. And the fact that he still has so much time to go, I wouldn't be surprised if SGA is at the top of this point guard list for, the foreseeable future, man. He's one of the most special talents in the NBA.
Yeah, and this, I mean, like, it's not like his game fully relies on athleticism as well. He's gonna have this game for a while. The 3-point shooting, he basically has a set shot for a point guard. It's not like he has that much left on the shot. That's gonna be able to stick around for a long time. Like I mentioned, one of the best mid-range jumpers. Maybe the defense will start to fall off, but he's in the freaking prime of his career, man. He's gonna still be a top-level point guard defender. Not much else to say about SGA. We've seen how good he is now from start of the season to the end of the season. And he's just going to continue to add it on. And this Oklahoma City Thunder team, we've mentioned from time to time. You think this run is over? This run can last for the next decade for all we know with the amount of drafts they have coming in. The way that they can just recycle through players in their rotation. SGA is that guy, and he is going to be the guy who's going to be leading them for the next decade. He re-signed his new contract. This man's going to about to have one hell of a legacy when all things are said and done. Super excited for what he has going forward. And he could finally cement himself firmly. I feel like this is the first year we could firmly say Shea Alexander is the best point guard in the league. As almost 100%. Some people might still say the Luka Doncic argument, but Shea Alexander and me and Jay's number one point guard in the league.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's our list. That's our list. I think it's a pretty damn good list, Jay. Let us know what you guys think down below with some guys that we are missing in general. I think we've covered most of the people, even the guys that we said were injured. We gave the disclaimer at the beginning, but if there's any other guys that we're missing, let us know down below. But Jay, another end of a fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching. What do you have to tell these beautiful people before we sign out?
Hey man, we warned y'all. The top 10 position rankings was coming. We're locked in. Obviously, you guys probably should know what next episode is looking like. We'll obviously try to keep you guys as updated in terms of NBA news that happens within the next week as well. But I think you guys know what next episode is going to look like. We're going to delve into the numbers again. Another very controversial position because, again, the shooting guard spot is one that's very reliant on things like points and efficiency. So the rankings around that is going to have to reflect that in a real way. And there's some really talented guys at that spot. So
100%. Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see where me and TV end up coming to conclusions with our top 10 list. But, again, like TV said it in the comment section, leave down below. Who do you feel like we left off? Where are some names that you think should be flipped around based off what list we had? Where would you guys put Damian Lillard, Kyrie Irving, and Tyrese Halliburton on your list if they were healthy? Where would you guys have included them at on you guys' top 10? Those are all things we'll be looking for in the comment section down below. But, man, we tapped in, bro. We tapped in. WNBA season should be coming back right after, this All-Star break kind of concludes itself. So that'll be interesting as well. Across basketball, bro, we locked in. Eurobasket's coming soon, TV. Like, it's all basketball all the time.
Follow along. That stuff you'll probably see more of that stuff on the TikTok and Instagram. So if you want
for sure,
if you want to check out at least like our reactions to a lot of that tournament, you can check out the TikTok, Instagram for the best daily NBA content on those platforms, man. You definitely want to go check those out. Again, great episode. Point guards today. You already know what's coming next. We got the shooting guards next week, and of course, we're gonna keep building up until we talk about the 10 best players in the league. It's gonna be a great time throughout the summer, man. Lots of basketball to talk about. And it's another great episode here for the Hit Your Free Throws podcast. So, yeah, thank you guys for all your support. Make sure you check out all of the links down below, our individual stuff, the Hit Your Free Throws stuff on all the different platforms. We appreciate all of you. And yeah, just continue to support the Hit Your Free Throws podcast on anywhere you could find us. We will be back next week for another great episode. But yeah, hope you all have a fantastic day. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out. Peace.